Hey everyone, welcome to Weeabooze, the monthly podcast where we get drunk and talk about anime. I'm Kyle.
I'm Sam.
I'm Hunter.
I'm Justin.
Now, the podcast has changed. The Weeabooze have entered a new arc. Consider this our season 2. Normally, I try to avoid talking about podcast stuff on the podcast because I know you guys are here to listen to our anime shenanigans. However, Animanigans. However, I think changing the format of something that some of you have been listening to for over a year justifies parting the podcast curtain that separates what you hear and the mentality behind it. So for those of you who want to hear me ramble about my reasoning and thought process behind changing the format of the podcast, I'll include an explanation at the end of the episode after our outro. Now, if we're no longer overanalyzing seemingly mundane qualities of anime and discussing anime culture, what's our new gimmick? It's so simple, and I'm so excited for it. Each episode, we'll all come together and simply share one or two things, one thing each, that simply makes us happy regarding anime. It could be something as all-encompassing as an entire series, or as specific as the way a character speaks a certain line. It could be a feeling, a technique, a memory, a color, absolutely anything. The only thing I discourage are vague topics, or topics that encroach on potential topics. For example, Hunter asked if he could just talk about cute girls, and I suggested that he be more specific. I think this concept gives us the opportunity to explore personal insights on certain things we could have never focused on previously, as well as have potentially informative conversation. I really want to give examples of the endless possibilities this new format is capable of, but I think it'd be more apparent if we just got into it. But first, what are we drinking tonight, Hunter?
So we have a hodgepodge of things. The first is Isolation Ale by Odell Brewing Company. The other is Leinenkugels. Is that right? Leinenkugels.
Vanilla porter.
Snowdrift Vanilla Porter.
Yes.
And before all that, we also had Wassail's Winter Ale.
Yeah, it's just a lot of wintry stuff. I mean,
It is the season for dark
tis
beers.
the season.
Yeah.
But I mean, I like dark beers literally all the time, except maybe when it's like 100 degrees. Then I'll take like a nice IPA.
Who wants to go first?
Kyle.
I can.
Kyle.
I'm more than willing to go first. One of the many things that reinforces my love for animation are Utapon cubes. Utapon is the nickname of one of the greatest animators in the anime industry, Yutaka Nakamura, and Utapon cubes are one of his many signature animation techniques. This technique involves animating environmental debris as perfect geometric shapes rather than amorphous chunks of earth or concrete. For example, if a character is punched so hard that they go flying into a wall, the wall will ripple and these cubular pillars will shoot outward instead of simply crumbling down. If you're having trouble visualizing it, I highly recommend searching for Yutaka Nakamura on YouTube, and you'll find countless compilations of cuts he's worked on. In addition to his recent work on the Boku no Hero fight between Deku and Todoroki, he's known for animating key moments of Fullmetal Alchemist, Cowboy Bebop, One Punch Man, Mob Psycho, Kekkai Sensen, Space Dandy, the best episode of Evangelion titled Dance Like You Want to Win, and most notably, as if those examples weren't praiseworthy enough, the final fight in Sword of the Stranger. While I could just talk about Nakamura, and probably will in the future, what really fascinates me is this trademark of his that's usually treated like nothing more than some anime Snapple fact. Back when it was airing, my sister and I would watch Legend of Korra together, and when I noticed someone on the animation team had imitated Nakamura's technique, I graciously shared this piece of wisdom with her. While she found it interesting, she didn't exactly share my enthusiasm for this otaku knowledge that I somehow assimilated over the course of watching anime for so many years. Her reply of, "Oh, that's cool," was expected. For many people, that's all this is, an observation. But Utapon cubes are obviously somewhat influential, or at the very least visually interesting. If they weren't, they wouldn't be copied by Korean animators on Korra, let alone have earned their own name. So what is it about seeing these stupid little cubes that gets me legitimately excited? Why is my reaction to seeing them a definitive and audible hell yeah? It's hard to put into words, and I think that's the point. Understanding why we find something attractive and putting it into words is difficult. I like to think of Utapon cubes as the animated equivalent of an onomatopoeia. They look like how I want an impact to feel, if that makes any sense. I find it oddly satisfying to watch something traditionally chaotic and unpredictable split apart in such formulaic and a precise manner. When a character swings a sword around so quickly that all we see are flashes of light, followed by a dramatic pause, followed by the object that we're cutting burst into a series of squares, is just the best. It's the idealization of deconstruction. Rather than using rubble to distract from a shoddy fight sequence, Nakamura glorifies and incorporates it into his action scenes. Creatively speaking, animation has no restrictions. If every single component of an anime has the potential to look unique and beautiful, why muddy a well-choreographed fight scene with thoughtless particle effects? Other techniques, like the Atano Circus, Studio Ghibli's pleasantly viscous-looking water, spears that when spun morphing into multiple fragmented lines, so many animation nuances just feel so unbelievably good to watch. Thinking about them sends shivers down my spine. Utapon cubes are a testament to anime's ability to sporadically defy logic purely for the sake of looking cool.
So to make sure I understand, Utapon cubes, it's not necessarily like you're not talking about his animation style. You're legitimately talking about like a very specific piece of it.
Correct. It's just something he kind of coined, something he thought was cool at one point and implemented.
That's cool. That's a cool word for a thing. Utapon cubes.
Yeah, it's his
Yeah,
it's
you
his
said
nickname.
that, and I was like, I have
That
no
sounded
idea
like
what
a
you should have
snack
talked
at
about.
first. I was like thinking of all the anime snacks I've seen them eat, and I was like, what is he talking about?
Yeah.
Wouldn't have thought debris.
I wouldn't have thought debris.
Stuff that I've seen but have no idea.
Exactly.
What,
And that's what I really wanted to get across is that, a lot of people notice it as an observation, maybe tell someone, hey, those are Utapon cubes, but they don't go further than that. They don't really explain why they're a thing to like.
Also, that animator has been in some
Yeah,
good shit.
that's a really
That's a good
star-studded
list.
kind of
Yeah,
list.
and like we're talking about this one thing that he's done, this one little tiny quirk he has, but in reality, like that's like by far the least exciting like component about him.
You know what? I really hope that like growing up, he took like art schools and he had to do certain things and he would draw debris like that. And his teacher was like, you can't do that. That's stupid. That's not the way it's supposed to look. And then like 2 decades later, Kyle's like, I love this shit. It's the best.
It's interesting that like you listed so many animes, and I've seen like majority of them. They're great. Like there's some of the greatest animes out there. And like that's something that's so subtle that like I've never noticed before. But maybe like it's the subtle details like that created a legacy of greatness with all these animes.
Definitely.
You know what's funny is like I've definitely noticed it, but I've never taken note, if that makes sense. Like I was like, well, that's
So
it. Like that looks
cubish
cool.
pillars of stuff coming
Yeah.
out. Like especially Full Metal Alchemist. I can
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
you're talking about when they
Like actually transmute the ground. In fact,
yeah.
he animated the majority of the second opening of Brotherhood, where
Yeah.
like there's actually a fight scene where like he like literally attacks with these pillars of ground.
Yeah, and I mean, it's so weird to think about because I thought that was just like, if you told me to think of something that had that, the only thing I would think of is Full Metal Alchemist. But yeah, you're right, that Todoroki fight scene has them, and then now every time I see them, I'll
Yeah,
be
it's a
able to help but
curse.
think
It's a
of it.
curse. Once you know about them, you're always going to see them.
It's weird that like how did you become aware of the term?
Yeah, how did you
Utapon
notice
cube?
that? Or how did you know there was a word for it?
No, I mentioned it when I was speaking about it.
Well, Korra.
I just assimilated this term after like being part of the anime community for so
Wait,
for so
you
long.
created that?
No. It's something I discovered
The
after just
Godfather
being-
of Utapon.
That's not what the word assimilated means. But no, it's just something I'm aware of. What I didn't know is that Utapon was Yutaka Nakamura's nickname. I didn't associate those two
It's
things.
a lot easier to say. What is it?
Yutaka.
Utakanawa?
Yutaka Nakamura.
Yutaka
Doesn't roll off
Nakamura.
the tongue.
I think
It's
it
not for
does.
me. Yutaka Nakamura? Wait, that actually sounds dope.
Yeah, I know.
Yutaka Nakamura. Dude, that's so cool.
Who would like to go next?
This is like
I'm
when
very-
you were in school and like they were like, okay, who wants to go first? And someone will go first and they would do really well and everyone's like, well, fuck it, I'm not going. Because like you were guaranteed a worse grade. But fuck it, I'll go.
You had a month to prepare, so
Hey.
here's what?
Prepare. Let's use that word a little bit loosely.
Kinda, yes.
A little bit loosely. My favorite, or not my favorite
My
thing.
favorite thing ever
Just
is
something
One
you
thing
like.
that I really love in anime is like when you're watching a shonen and there's some like crazy shit going down, and all of a sudden in comes like the main theme for that anime starts, and you're like,
dude.
let's fucking go. That's the best moment ever, every single time without fail.
Dude, yeah, when the theme song comes on, like
Yeah.
in One
You know
Punch Man,
shit's
where you
gonna
just hear
When
that
he's
guitar
fighting,
intro.
when he's fighting Boros and the intro theme turns on, just like, "Wabba!" and you're like, yeah, and it just, you fucking get into it. That's the best moment. That's like the orgasm of every single episode. Like, anytime you watch a shonen and the main theme doesn't play in it, I'm like, well, shit, I was
This
waiting
is a
for
waste
that.
of fucking time.
Like, honestly though, to me, like that is the climax or the eclipse of every episode or any point in a shonen.
Even
when
if you
that
know
happens.
it's coming, you're like, oh, it's
Oh
gonna
yeah, no,
come.
I want it to happen. I need it to come. I need to come like that. Like that. I need that theme song to play, and if it doesn't, it breaks my heart.
I mean, I definitely do not disagree with you, but why do you think that is? What is it about hearing the opening, in the midst of a climactic moment that makes it so exciting?
Like, usually when the theme song comes on, right, that doesn't just happen when the fight starts. It doesn't happen halfway through. It happens when the main character, your protagonist, his back is up against the wall. Everything's going poorly. Nothing's gonna work. Everyone's about to die. And then when all hope is lost, you just, and you're like, oh, do it. Or like the You Say Run theme from Boku no Hero starts up, and you're like, oh, it's fucking Detroit Smash time. And you know what's coming. Like, it's so great to know once the theme starts that, like, oh, buckle your fucking seatbelts because we're about to go in hard. But then on top of that, then they can like play into it, and they'll start I don't know if you guys ever noticed this. Sometimes they'll start the theme and you're like, oh, here we fucking go. And then they just stop the music and your guy just gets knocked the fuck out anyways. And you're like, well, great. You broke my heart. Like, it's something about music, the auditory, I don't know. The moment you hear it, it just sends all these like synapses in your brain, and it just fires to trigger all these emotions. And that's what gets me, is the emotional impact that it happens. And you only get that with sound.
No, I agree. The opening theme is sort of the embodiment of the protagonist in a sense. But it's funny that you sort of mentioned the fact that there are times where the anime will cut off the main theme.
Yeah.
Because
They know, right? They know
they're
that
very
that's the thing.
aware of the fact that we expect that in certain climactic moments.
I think so. A good example. I think me and Justin are kind of on the same page here, but I think that Kill la Kill actually does this a lot. I know that Sam hasn't seen it, but
Quite a bit.
There is the "Don't Lose Your Way" song
And
that
it's
everybody
great.
knows about
It's
for
great.
Kill la Kill.
Yeah.
Will play, but I think even more than that, there's a certain fight in the show where the enemy is kind of like musically inclined, like it's a musical kind of boss. So when they're fighting and you see the enemy start to win, you hear that that character's theme song kind of overpower. So both are playing in tandem.
Oh, that's cool.
But one gets louder than the other
Right.
depending on who's winning the fight at that specific moment. And I think it's really, really cool.
To me, the probably... So I was trying to think of like what's my favorite theme to like when I'm watching a shonen or something like that, and the theme kicks in and I'm just like, oh, here we go. To like... You Say Run from Boku no Hero, like, it's up there. It's so, like, that is a very memed
Yes, it is.
song. Like, that one, you can call that a meme, whoever that was. But the song is called One by Hazel Fernandez, and that's the song from Bleach, where it's like, boom, tsh, boom, tsh, and then, like, it starts, and you're like, oh, Bankai's coming! Bankai's coming! Like, that's the best. That's probably the best song ever made.
That is a fantastic song.
Yeah.
So Sam, I have a question.
up?
Because like I agree with you, but I want to understand why we have such an emotional attachment to the theme. Is it because the song itself is so representative of the anime, or is it just because of the fact that we hear it so much?
Not just the anime. I mean, I think Kyle brought up a good point when he said it is the embodiment of the protagonist. Like, that is his anthem or her anthem. It is the anthem of kind of triumph for the protagonist. So when that song kicks in, for however long that theme is, if it's a 1 minute long theme, you know that the next 1 minute is going to be the embodiment of your character or of the moral of the show. And that's what's exciting.
I'm not unaware. I'm a music creator myself, but do do shows actually create songs specifically catered to the anime, or do they choose an already existing song? Like, how does that work?
Typically, a pre-existing song, to my knowledge, is not picked. A song is created for that show.
Okay, so they outline, what is the show about? What do we want it to feel like? And then they go and create a song. And that's why you end up with stuff that's very relevant.
Well, I mean,
lyrics that
that's
are
why
very relevant.
the theme song and like the animation for the opening, works so well together. I feel like they're created for one another, right?
Interesting.
I wouldn't know which one is created first, but I would imagine the song and then the animation happens over it. Because I feel like the opposite would be really difficult for the musical talent.
I'm actually not sure. I mean, I think this happens in a multitude of ways. I know for a fact that there are anime that have picked pre-existing songs, and but I feel like the majority don't. But I'm not exactly sure.
Most of the music for anime, for fight scenes and stuff, like they don't have lyrics and they're not like a full out song. So maybe is it the fact that like
Well, a lot of times they are a song and then they'll clip a certain part of it to play. But you can usually look up the extended versions of those songs.
Okay.
I mean, the "Don't Lose Your Way" song, that's lyrical, obviously.
Yes. Yeah, and that's what I mean. Like maybe is that why it's so impactful when they play these songs, like during those
I would
moments?
imagine that when they use like those themes, specifically talking about like those anthemic, is that a word? Anthemic songs?
Probably not, but let's go with it.
Sure.
It makes sense.
I
Context.
would not be surprised if the studio went to the composer and were like, okay, these are, before it comes out, they're like, okay, these are like screenshots or whatever. This is the art design, this is the feel, and this is the tone. Make it happen. And then
Yeah,
they just do it. And
definitely.
sometimes they're amazing at it, and sometimes they're not.
Who would like to go next?
I can go.
Do it.
Cool. So, the thing that I really, really like about anime is the fact that it can have a huge influence on your life. For me in specific, this is a very broad topic, and I'm sorry if it's not, on point, compared to Kyle's.
We'll never be as good as Kyle. We've all accepted it.
For me, many
Dare
years
not
ago,
fly too so close to the sun.
I watched Initial D, that's a very popular anime, and it actually changed my life because, I got into cars because of Initial D. I learned so much about it. I was inspired to pursue, I was inspired to become passionate about cars. And it's about, cars, and there's so much real life knowledge in that show that I was constantly looking up stuff that I didn't understand. It was my first experience with drifting, and now I own a drift car that's in the show, and I go to drift events.
Wait, is that really what got you into cars?
Absolutely. I
That's
had a car.
fucking cool.
It changed my life. So much of my life is about cars, and I can 100% point to Initial D, which is an anime, a very well-known anime, for getting me into it.
Have you seen, is it called Redline?
Yeah, Justin
We were
just
talking about
watched
this before
Redline.
you walked in.
Redline was
really?
amazing.
So sick.
So dope. Very cool. But the thing I like Redline is very fantastic.
Yeah.
It's so cool. But Initial D is very real world. And it inspired this idea that these are just regular kids who go out and do this thing. And that's exactly what drifting is now, several years later. There's a community, there's normal people, very passionate about cars. And it's so cool to me that an anime inspired me to sell my truck, buy an Acura Integra, which was the worst decision ever. That car overheated, but it had big cool wheels and a black hood.
That's all I've ever wanted in life.
And I put a fart can exhaust on it. It was super sick.
What
sounds
is
sick.
that? I don't know what that is.
Just
It
really
basically just replace your exhaust and nothing else, so it sounds loud and obnoxious as hell, but not good.
Oh, nice. That's cool. I've never even heard of that anime.
And you haven't
Initial
heard of
D?
Initial D?
Eurobeat.
Eurobeat.
Eurobeat sounds familiar.
Dude, Eurobeat, Initial D, drifting.
If you've listened to
that's all
Eurobeat,
of it.
you've heard something from Initial D.
There's a million memes about Eurobeat and drifting. It's amazing.
Kansai Drifter?
Well, I think that's amazing. We've been asked before about how anime has impacted our real life decisions.
Didn't you say Bleach got you into fitness or
It did,
physical?
that's what I was going to bring up. Bleach was my first anime, and it it got me into working out. And I've mentioned this before, but people in high school like knew me as that quiet buff kid. Justin is pointing to himself. He knew me back in high school.
I hung out with Justin. He was like, "Oh, dude, do you hang out with Kyle?" I'm like, "Oh yeah, I talk to Kyle pretty often. We do a podcast." He was like, "Oh, is he still like buff and stuff?" Like super ripped guy.
But yeah, it's funny how much these fictional stories, these fictional characters, or even if they're just imitating reality, can impact us to make real life decisions.
Mm-hmm. I think it's the like for you when it was like physical fitness, like obviously, Ichigo and some of the other characters are really physically fit. It's like these real aspects that we latch onto.
Yeah.
And really like we learn about, like obsess about. Obviously when you were working out, you were obsessed about working out. With cars, like I was obsessed about learning about cars. Right. And taking that and making it real. And it, definitely snowballed. I had a crappy car, didn't know anything, was an idiot, made bad decisions, got a Subaru. Got WRX.
Have you rewatched what's it called? Something D?
Initial D.
Have you rewatched Initial D after knowing all the car stuff?
Correct. And it's so interesting how just this one catalyst that started everything has so much more meaning now that like when I go out and actually drift and actually see, an 8.6 drifting on the track or, drifting my FC, I'm like, whoa, not only do I know what they're talking about, but I can identify with the driving style and can appreciate how accurate and true to real life Japanese, mountain driving it is.
Dude, that like so heel toe downshift in that anime. It's awesome.
Dude, it's so on point with the physics and
except for the water thing. That would be all over the interior, like really.
No, but he's so good that he didn't spill it.
Get it.
I'm sorry, Hunter. You just
he puts
cannot
a cup
understand.
Of water, and basically he tries to keep it so it doesn't overflow. That's how he knows if he's smooth enough. So while he's drifting, like the water's like just about to like fall out of the cup and stuff. No,
well, it's because he's a tofu delivery person, and
there's a lot of story behind it.
Yeah. If you
the
drive,
one thing.
Tofu can get destroyed if like it's too
wobbly.
Yeah. So it's amazing, and the fact that he drives fast and slides is because he doesn't like driving. And he wants to go faster.
So he wants to get it done faster.
Yeah. He hates cars and driving.
He learns how to drift out of necessity.
Exactly.
And that's why it's amazing, because you have a character who doesn't even know what he's doing and how he's a god. He's just like...
Yeah, he like gets people in the car and he's like, I'm just doing what I always do. Why do you pass out?
Hands down the best.
Go watch Initial D. The animation has a little bit to be,
It's not great.
It's a little old.
You can watch the movies, but the movies don't have the Eurobeat.
The Eurobeat's pretty much the best part.
The Eurobeat,
like when you see the black R32 come up behind and you hear the dun-dun-dun, dun-dun-dun, like that's
pushing to the limit.
Back on the rocks, back on the rocks, baby.
And we're back to my thing. Hell yeah.
Before we get too much further into singing tracks from Initial D,
dude.
Hunter, would you like to move on to your topic?
Sure. So one thing that I really like is that even though anime sometimes can feel like a secret club of people that's like, or it's kind of individual, like it's only your thing, and that other people don't really like it. I really like, as counterintuitive as it might seem, the togetherness and like, the camaraderie that can come with it, because it's like once you find out that someone else is into the same anime as you, like there is this huge connection that is made. Like if I saw like a little Kurizu Makise sticker on somebody's car, like I don't care about anything else. Like I want to be that dude's friend like right now, right? Dude. Like once you find somebody that likes something, like that you think is kind of like, you don't bring it up in all of your conversations. You're not like, oh,
it's the secret common interest.
Exactly. So I really, really like it when you find somebody that likes something that you do, but you think that's like kind of underground or whatever.
Sure.
Or unknown.
I literally was just talking about this to you in the kitchen. I was driving on my way home from somewhere today, and the car in front of me, right before I was going to turn into my neighborhood, it was a truck, and on the tailgate was a giant Capsule Corp bumper sticker. And I was like, oh, that's my house, but I want to follow this guy and let him know that like he's awesome.
Just finding somebody that's into something that you're into, like I don't know. There's something special about it when it's anime. Like if I see a dude, like I watched Breaking Bad. If I see someone with a Breaking Bad shirt, I'm like, oh, cool. He watched the show. But if I see somebody with something that's kind of subtle, like let's say he has a keychain and it's like one of the Shingeki logos or something, like that is instant. Like I want to talk to this dude. I want to find out what his other interests are. I want to get to know this person. It's like just like you said. It's like the secret common interest.
Yeah, I think it's
people.
because it's super common for people to like love football or love cars or love sports or love a certain genre of music. But when it comes to anime, it's one so
People
broad.
don't like put it out
It's
there,
not
right?
broadcasted, right? Like it's not taboo, but it's not like an open thing. There's a lot of closet weeabooze out there,
Right.
But especially because of just how broad anime is, like there are people that will only watch a certain kind of anime and they won't watch others. If you watch a very niche anime and you like it, and then you find out somebody else is into that very niche anime, it's just like, oh shit, like it's so cool.
Right, because so many people think anime is this one singular thing. But as you said, it's broad. It's very diverse. So it's not just coming across someone who likes anime, because you can do that and be complete opposites. But if you can find that person who likes that same one anime as you are instantly, as you said, best friends.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you guys remember, and I think we've brought this up maybe on 2 other occasions during the podcast, there was at a house party, I think his name was Colin?
Yes.
Yeah, Colin. So he was at a house party and he was one of the roommates' very best friends, like full lifetime long best friend. And we were there. We're all hanging out, having a good time, and we mentioned that we had a podcast we were talking about or something, and we brought up, oh yeah, we have a podcast about anime, and this guy, Colin, was like, oh yeah, I watch anime sometimes. We're like, oh really, like, what do you watch? And then he just goes off. He's like, I watch this and that. I was like, oh, I love anime. I've seen like every single anime. He's going through his list. He's like, oh my god, I've watched anime my whole life and I've never told anybody. And then his lifelong best friend is just like, you watch anime? And he was like, yeah dude, I never thought anyone would think it was cool, so I never told anybody. And I was like, oh my god.
Dude, it was like
and we
this
immediately
opening of this dude, like
just
first
this
time he'd
release.
ever been able to talk to anybody about
He
it. It
came
was
out of
really
the
cool to
anime
see.
closet.
Yeah, and
Good
it
for him.
was so cool.
That's amazing.
But it was exactly what you're explaining.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's interesting. We've also been asked, like, would any of us be willing to date someone who hasn't watched anime?
Yeah.
And
No.
What?
Well, no. The
One of the
point
things that look for girls is someone I can like watch anime with. Like I'm like not
Dude,
for
it's
real,
the
but like
best.
but like
Oh
kind
my
of like
God,
for real.
dude.
Like I want to watch Ghibli movies with like a
Ghibli
girl. Like
movies?
I'm not gonna lie, and like I want them to be into
I mean,
it.
I wouldn't say that's a deal breaker.
Well, the point I was trying to make.
It's cool.
The point I was trying to make is that, it's not really a matter of, is this person willing to watch anime or not? It's that if you happen to come across someone, someone who you want to date, or even just a friend, it's a shared experience. It's a very intimate shared experience of like, we took this journey with a fictional character and we know their life and it impacted how we act, in our daily lives. And if we find someone else who also experienced that same journey, we have a shared memory, we have a shared connection, we have a shared experience. We lived that fictional life together, and we have one less step to get to know each other. We can know each other through having watched the same series,
Especially if you guys both watched it while it was airing.
right?
Well, so like low key, one of the reasons I thought about this originally is exactly what Justin said about like watching it with a girl, right? Is that watching like Your Name for the first time with my now fiance, like watching all
Congrats.
these Ghibli movies.
I think I've congratulated before.
Watching the Ghibli movies with her and stuff.
You don't like watching it with us.
You guys are great and all, but
Cuddling is so much better watching a Ghibli
We can
movie.
cuddle.
cuddling's better with girls.
Okay.
Sorry,
You don't want to
sorry,
cuddle
Kyle. Your beard is scratchy.
Oh, I
and-
know.
We can't all have a beard like yours, Hunter. You fuck.
But yeah, I mean that was one of the reasons that originally got me to think about that. Is kind of one of the things I really enjoy about it. It's just like I don't know, just watch, and it could be when I watched Haruhi with Jeremy, just like having some sort of common interest. That's like I can't go talk to people at school about this usually, like if I'm in college or something, and people at work don't give a shit. But if there's like just somebody that shares a common interest with you that you find extremely niche, it's like it's a really good way of connecting with people.
Yeah, definitely.
When I was working at Subaru, there was this lady who was like in her 50s with like white hair. You would never imagine that she watched anime. I found out she watched anime and she became my best friend because she didn't just like kind of watch anime, but like she was like legit into it and she would dissect it. So I'd go in and I'd be like, yo, have you seen this? And she's like, yes, this is what I think about
Oh
it.
my gosh. I want to be your friend. Let's get her on the
on the show.
podcast.
I was gonna
She's
say, this is like
amazing.
plus 30 years female Kyle.
I'm just saying, like, her and Kyle, like, they'd be great together. Like, her view.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. But yeah,
No, I agree. We probably
you
would
can't
be.
judge anime people. Like, you know, it's all creeds and everything. Like, you can't be like, yo, that person watches anime.
Okay, so I sort of agree. I think that there's a certain type of person that you can be like, that dude fucking watches anime. But
Don't even need to ask him.
but there's also some people that, yeah, like you say, that you wouldn't think that they watch anime by looking at them. But there's definitely a subset of people that are like, that motherfucker is into some weird shit and he definitely watches anime.
He could just be wearing the Naruto headband because he thinks it looks good with his belt.
Yo, have you ever tried running like they do in Naruto? It's very efficient.
Is it
Dude,
efficient?
it's so fast.
It is.
Honestly, I was thinking about selling my car because I'm just so much quicker that
All
way.
right. So that was our new approach to the podcast. It obviously doesn't have the same amount of depth as what we used to do, but hopefully, you know, the videos I release will make up for that. Speaking of which, I know I haven't released one yet. Hopefully, I will be able to put it out before the end of the month. As I mentioned before, it's going to be my top anime of the year. I think that went well. What do you guys
Went
think?
pretty good. I think nobody had a shitty topic, so that's good.
Well,
Oh,
Wow. Who's topic
I'm
was
just
shitty?
kidding.
I feel bad.
I'm just kidding. To our listeners, please let us know what you thought. And remember, if you don't understand why we changed and would like to hear some behind the scenes explanation, stick around until after the outro and I'll talk to you guys about it. If you guys didn't like it, we'll have to think of a new strategy, but just let us know. But for now, let's move on to questions and feedback. We did get an email from ELLE. I want to clarify because later we'll be answering a question from username LEL. She said, I have to say, as someone who's watched and listened to various podcasts, both anime and non-anime related, I am continuously impressed by not only the amount of time and energy that's spent talking about every facet of anime, but the depth of these conversations as well. Elle goes on to give us some very kind, constructive criticism that I won't read, but still wanted to address. Even if you think you may be sending something, I don't know, mean-spirited, if you phrase it nicely, you know, like Elle did, it truly helps the show, so thank you very much. Because I've declared this as a new season of the podcast, I thought it would be beneficial to reintroduce ourselves to anyone coming into the podcast for the first time. So, I sent out a message on our Discord and my Tumblr asking for personal questions. We have a few, so let's try not to linger too much on each one. So, really quickly, the History Channel asks, first anime. Sam?
Series, does it matter if it was a series or
No,
not?
just first anime.
Ninja Scroll, the movie.
Awesome. How do you feel about that, really briefly?
It was sick as fuck. I was like 9 years old watching
Oh
a
my
movie where
gosh.
people were getting ripped in half by like demons. Like it was sick.
Yes, that's a very grotesque first movie.
Wow.
Wow.
That explains so much.
Yeah.
Hunter?
So I'm going to count the first thing I watched beginning to end because I don't think that Dragon Ball on Toonami is an interesting answer. So I'm going to say Gurren Lagann.
Okay. And how old were you? Were you were
I
old?
was relatively like late coming to this. I must have been 19.
Oh,
maybe.
okay.
Like this was
Recent.
relatively recent. Yeah.
Justin?
The first anime that I ever watched was Gundam 00.
Nice.
Yeah, I watched like the first episode of the second season. I was so enthralled that I watched the first season in like a night. I was about like 16, and that anime, like the themes in it, you know, to a certain extent, it, you know, influenced me. You know,
For
'cause
for all of us I don't know if it was just me, but like was the first time you watched anime, you just immediately were like, "Yep, this is the shit. I love this."
it was downhill from there. My life is trash now.
Yeah, Bleach, as I mentioned earlier, was my first anime. And not only was my immediate reaction like, this is the coolest thing I have ever seen, but I also thought to myself, I can't tell anyone about this. And I've talked about that on the show before.
When I first found out Kyle liked anime, he was like, "Don't tell anyone. Be quiet about it. Don't talk too loud."
I don't remember that.
I feel like I'm a little bit different in that regard because, like, for me, it must have been either when we were playing StarCraft or League of Legends a bunch. Me, Sam, our friend Payway, and Kevin, I think, would be like the group of people. And they would always talk about anime, and I'm like, guys, shut the fuck up. I don't care about this stuff. And then after talking about it enough, I'm like, fine, I'll go check it out. So they're like, yeah, just go to my anime list. Just pick one. Just watch it.
Just pick one. Jeez.
And he did, and it
So
was
I picked
awesome.
Gurren Lagann, and at the end I was sad. And I was sad because I could never watch Gurren Lagann for the first time again.
Man, I wished I felt that way about Bleach. Bleach is like watching my beautiful firstborn child flip me off as they run into traffic.
Oh my gosh.
All right, we need to move on. We need to move on. Next question.
That's a bumper sticker.
Ostershallen asks, do you listen to other podcasts?
Yeah, but totally not related. Joe Rogan Experience is the
No,
only
that's
one I really
perfectly
listen to,
fine.
yeah.
I used to listen to, it was called Hello Internet with CGP Grey.
Okay.
Somebody might know what that is.
No, enough for Justin. Yes, I listen to quite a few. A few are Reasonably Sound, Game Scoop, Hello from the Magic Tavern, The Adventure Zone, Imaginary Worlds, the Nickelodeon Podcast, Off Book, and The Moth. So EL, asks a bunch of questions. First, if the Weeabooze were an anime, which character type would each of you be? What do you guys think?
I kind of feel like Sam would be the pro tag.
I would be.
Really?
I don't think so, but okay, I'm down with that. Hell yeah.
I mean, I think we've mentioned it before, but Sam would be like the character with no filter because he speaks his mind so much. Somewhat sometimes.
I mean, still, but like just as strong as the protagonist.
Maybe
Well-
the protagonist's best friend that always has
Well,
shitty
no,
advice.
I was gonna say like the rival.
Oh, the
The
rival.
rival.
Oh,
Comic
well, I'm
relief.
no
That's what I
one's
was
rival.
thinking, right? Like the person that you love just as much
Yeah. Yeah.
because they're so funny.
I would never die in the series.
The examples that come to mind are kind of main characters, you know, the Luffy, the Haruhi, the Black Clover protag, which is not a good thing, but
Kyle would
I'd be the
like,
Joey Wheeler. I'd love that. That'd be sick.
Kyle would be the wise old man character
Really?
or something. Like the one that
just
gives
knows
information, you know, knows everything, like the omniscient, but you know, maybe the main character doesn't realize that until
well, that's
later.
awesome. I appreciate that.
Like in the final fight, when they're thinking about the move they've been practicing forever, they think of you.
Aw. Oh, that's so cool. I did not picture myself that way, but I appreciate that. I almost thought of myself as like the Genki, like, believe it.
Believe it.
Never give up. I fight for my friends.
I think that you're like that guy.
Thanks.
Main character. That guy, yeah.
The guy,
The
you know,
guy.
the guy with the thing in the
Well,
believe
the main
it.
The protagonist from your Lie in April, right?
Oh, okay.
Like super low key,
Oh, I
but
appreciate it.
like really good.
Thank you.
Like very, very knowledgeable.
Thank you. All right. Hunter. What do you think about Hunter? I think you are Ryuji from Persona.
No.
What?
No way.
You're a
Ryuji
character
from Persona?
Your character type is the delinquent that's not actually a delinquent. You have a cool guy car, but you don't obnoxiously drive it around. You know, you play basketball, but you're not a total bro about it.
I think Hunter is the guy that always brings the rest of the gang back to reality whenever they stray too far.
Is that like a type of character?
I think so. I just can't think of it right now.
Okay.
You're like the Piccolo.
I don't get that.
He's green. Cannon.
That's you.
Kind of a bad guy, but he's good.
Yeah.
Kind of a bad guy sometimes.
What is Justin? Justin was hard for me to think of.
You're the guy from Initial D.
I wish.
A lot of outgoing and extroverted personality types in anime all fall under the, you know, the foreigner or transfer student character. So the character that kind of came to mind is like the DJ from Boku no Hero. Like the teacher
Oh, damn. That's actually really
who like
good.
just
I
screams
like
and
that.
shouts and is always doing his rapper hands. That's Justin.
Rapper
I
hands.
actually kind of like that. That's a good
I do that.
I was gonna say that Justin's almost like the say like you go into a new school or something and there's like the cool guy that's the head of the gang of the school or something, like that'd be Justin.
Yeah.
Maybe not like douchey or like that, you know, mean or in
You know-
any way, but just like the like Fonz kind of thing.
Yeah, I almost put him as who's the blonde from Kuroko.
The blonde guy. Oh,
Kisei?
yeah, Kisei.
You know, he
Yeah.
he kind of goes to a different school. You know, you're new to the podcast. You're kind of that, but like you have your own power level
You got
in your own
thing,
school.
right?
Yeah.
He's got his own thing going on. You know, he's got the.
Is Kyle still searching for the IRL waifu? Every day, you know it. So
Every
All
day?
day.
every day.
Every day.
Even today?
Even today. If you had to pick a song to be your personal entrance music, what would it be?
I mentioned it once. It'd be one by Hazel Fernandez. If every time I walked in a room that shit started, that'd be great.
Hunter?
I kind of want to choose the Tokyo Drift theme.
Just do it. Wait. That's not.
Every time you walk into a room, dude, that'd be so
Here
dope.
comes fucking Hunter again.
This fucking dude with his goddamn obnoxious theme music.
Justin.
N-words in Paris.
Oh.
Okay.
That would be sick.
I would do any
Dude,
space.
it's one song and one song only. Ball so hard, motherfuckers wanna fight. Ding, ding. That'd be cool. I like that.
I would do any Space Jam anime remix.
Dude, the Space Jam. Oh,
Wait, like
Weird.
the
Pretty dope.
everybody.
Yeah, paired with any anime song. There's a YouTube channel dedicated to
there's
Space
a
Jam.
subreddit called "Come On and Slam."
Yeah.
Kind of
It's
cool.
great.
Okay.
All right. Who's the tallest weeaboo? Not me.
Like me.
That's probably
Hunter.
Hunter by
6'1",
like 3
yeah.
feet or something.
What kind of music do the weeaboos like? To prevent us spiraling too deep into this, like let's just say, you know, maybe a genre and a
Just
few
do
artists.
3 artists. Is that cool?
That's perfectly fine. So for me, you know, genre, I probably listen most to electronic music. I like kind of old school house and trance music. So artists would be Above and Beyond, Armin van Buuren,
Come to decadence.
Marcus Schulz.
That was an impressive list, Kyle.
So
I applaud you.
thank you. Who wants to go next?
I'll go. So
Hunter.
I'm gonna do the 3 genres and 3 bands that kind of represent that. So I'll say kind of like metal or hardcore music, or I guess hard rock,
Metalcore.
metalcore, sure, whatever. That'll be Dance Kevin Dance. For jazz and hip hop, I'm gonna go with Nujabes as the common.
Oh,
like,
sure. I think
fuckboy
we
answer,
all love
right?
Nujabes, yeah.
And then I will go with a electronic artist, and I will say Porter Robinson / Virtual Self.
Sure, cool.
I'll go. So I am a composer, so I'm gonna just kind of say like what I make and what I have made.
Do it.
I make rap music and I manage a rap artist. His name is Young Luke. There's the plug.
Hashtag.
Hashtag Young Luke. Check it out. I really enjoy EDM music. I'm going to EDC this year. Very excited. First festival ever.
Cool.
Excited.
Really?
Jealous.
They're amazing.
And then I used to play metal and hardcore music. So, you know, I listened to about everything, but definitely very passionate about rap music. I think it's, you know, really cool.
Yeah. Sam.
Oh, okay. Literally everything. I'm really big into. I guess more than anything, EDM and kind of hip hop. If I had to name just a handful of artists to encompass all of that, we'll say for hip hop, we'll say like Common Market, Talib Kweli,
Dude,
Black
Common Market is so good.
Black Star, like that
Kweli,
kind
man.
of.
Talib Kweli too.
So
Yeah,
good. So
and Black
lyrical.
Star, Most Def,
What
like,
about Blue Scholars though?
well, same thing as Common Market. Anyways,
And A$AP
that
Rock.
that kind of style of hip hop. When it comes to EDM, Hunter already said Porter, so I don't want to repeat it. So Kyle also said Armin van Buuren. I don't want to repeat it, but damn, they're good. But also like Galantis, Big Wild, Vanek, Louis the Child, all that shit, so good.
So many things. We like
Diverse.
We like a diverse amount of music.
Yeah, I
This was
listen
a great
to
question. It's
Literally
really
everything
cool.
from heavy metal to like old school rap.
Last question, is Kyle more of a horror main character or Dojin main character? Definitely horror main character, because rather than actually getting with girls, things tend to end ambiguously with no confirmation for a second season. Now, let's move on to what we are
Can I
watching.
just say one thing real quick?
No.
It's so true. It is so true. Kyle, in high school, Kyle had a harem.
What? I was
Legit.
unaware of this harem.
It was a thing.
This is
Kyle
not...
He
was-
had
Kyle was
teachers,
just
he had
as
upperclassmen, he had them all.
I did
I
have a
was
teacher.
just as clueless as the protagonist in the actual show.
Okay.
Correct. There was so much sexual tension, but nothing happened.
I'll hit that teacher up one day.
Oh my gosh.
Now, let's move on to what
Mr.
we're... You know it.
Mr. Peterson.
Let's move on to what we're watching. Who wants to talk about what they have watched first?
I have watched a lot of anime recently.
Awesome.
Currently
You
watching.
watched Steins Gate recently, haven't you?
I finished Steins Gate, and that was, oh my gosh, amazing. So
The best,
cool.
dude.
That was the best. I mean, I literally, when it first came out, watched it, didn't like it, finally watched it. Oh my gosh, amazing. I watched Redline, and then I'm watching Kids on the Slope currently, thanks to Kyle, and I have developed a very strong love for music anime.
Awesome. That's a
Dude, you
cool
need to go-
genre.
I told you about K-On, right? And you need
That
to
was
go.
the girl band.
Yeah, dude.
I am down. Like, I have such a love for girl rock bands. Like, I don't know. Like I don't know.
Dude, just the
But
fact that like the fingering on the guitars is
Yeah.
actually like they're actually playing the chords and the notes. Like
I mean,
it's
but that
actually-
can be said about almost all musical anime.
But Angel Beats
yeah.
wasn't an anime song.
No,
you
it
know,
wasn't.
But like there was a little bit of girl rock band in it, and I really enjoyed it. Like I
Dude, that
really
intro
did.
song with the piano was just like golden.
Yeah. I actually listened to Chopin because of anime. Like legitimately.
That's dope.
I'm listening to classical music because of your line.
Yeah, I listen to classical music every morning.
That's a great way.
It's just how Kyle wakes up.
Well, no, it's how I drive to work.
He's elevated above the normal population.
I might edit myself, saying that I listen to classical music every morning out of the podcast.
Well, that might be like that thing that Hunter was talking about where you connect with
Nerd.
somebody on that
yeah,
level.
whatever.
Yeah,
That's
someone's
what you
like,
need to be honest
I
to
love
find your
Beethoven,
waifu,
and now I
Kyle.
love Kyle.
Justin, you also watched Kill la Kill, right?
I did, and that was incredible. I was at the first Weeabooze podcast that I had attended last month, and they had told me that there was an anime where a girl gets power by wearing less clothes, and I was so skeptical. I thought it sounded like trash and super like anti like women power, and I was like, nah. But it was on
Fair, I purposely explained it to you like that because that's the joke, is that it's satirizing that.
and it sounded terrible. Like I was kind of offended, but it was amazing, and I loved every second of it.
I'm glad. I'm so glad. How about you guys?
I've been watching a lot of things.
Yeah.
Watched a movie called Collector.
I watched
last
8
night.
Mile about Eminem.
That's my favorite anime.
All right. So, Children of the Whales attempted to force the audience to care about its characters for shallow reasons, such as their design or archetype, and then expected us to care about them when they died or experienced a traumatic event. The series had a lot of potential, but everything about it, from the writing, the characterization, just feels shallow. Junie Tyson, speaking of disappointing anime, has left me with some conflicting thoughts. It's not over yet, so there's still technically time for it to somehow redeem itself. I was convinced that the character deaths that occur in every episode were there to distract us from the big picture. I thought there would be some big secret regarding Nezumi's power, and I was right. But even though I knew there would be some sort of twist, it didn't make up for the rest of the series, at least not yet. The series is probably past saving, though. Inuyashiki has had a few moments that elicited some genuine reactions. I've talked about that one incredibly eerie murder scene, and recently I got pretty hyped when the old man pulled out a new power, but oh my gosh, the big fight scene in episode 10 looks so incredibly terrible. I have a high tolerance for imperfect animation. If a story is good enough, I can usually look past the visuals. Knowing this, when I say something looks bad, I really mean it. Netoju no Susume ended, and I was pleasantly surprised by it. I initially gave it a hard time for not delving into some gender issues I thought would have been interesting, but once I stopped forcing my own ideals onto the show, I found it to be a perfectly average rom-com. I enjoyed it, I'm looking forward to the OVA, and in a few years, it will most likely fade out of my memory into the sea of forgotten anime. Kino no Tabi is receiving a lot of criticism that, when simplified, equates to it's not as good as the original. My memory isn't good enough to compare the two, but it does make me question if one is better than... Oh my gosh, I can't read!
Do you want me to read it for you?
No, I
I'll do
don't,
my
because
best
you don't
Ky-
watch anime!
I'll do my best Kyle voice.
I'm gonna talk about an anime called Kino no Tabi. This is my opinion on an anime. Kino no Tabi is receiving a lot of
This is my opinion, and you're gonna listen to it.
No, it's Joe Kyle. Go. The floor is yours.
Oh my gosh. My memory isn't good enough to compare the two, but it does make me ask the question if one is better than the other, or if we're currently in a time where something like Kino simply isn't as impactful. The current version of Kino is emotional and introduces some interesting philosophical concepts, yet it makes me thoroughly stretch my suspension of disbelief. While the ideologies is a hard drunk word. While the ideologies of the various hive-minded townspeople provide interesting avenues for stories, the lack of reasoning behind their mentality makes it difficult for me to accept their actions as plausible. Episode 10, I think it's episode 10, is a good example of this. Overall, it's not that some stories are better than others. I think some are more believable than others. Sangatsu no Line is phenomenal. It has some of the most loving and subtly powerful scenes of anything this season. Even though everyone is suffering with their own issues, they all just want each other to be happy. And finally, I'm having a difficult time formulating an opinion on Hoseki no Kuni. Without a doubt, it's one of the best looking, sort of, 3D anime out there. I find myself mindlessly enjoying it, and that's my concern. I think the anime is deceptively superficial. When I'm not distracted by the shiny, genderless, strangely attractive crystal people, I start to realize not much of anything is really happening. Characters are developing and drastically changing, but for what reason? The series is coming to a close, and I still don't know that much more about the conflict than what was introduced in the beginning. I don't want that to deter anyone from watching it, though, because it's really, really enjoyable. Now, that is all we have to say for this episode. Remember to stay after the outro for our meta podcast talk. If you have any questions for us, feel free to send as many as you would like. You can send them to myself at Secret Otaku on Tumblr, email us at theweeabooze@gmail.com, or just leave a comment wherever you're listening. Join us for our Twitch for when we record live on Fridays around the middle of each month, and join us on our Discord so you can talk to us whenever you would like. Honestly, the Discord is the best way to get in touch with us. Also, consider supporting us on Patreon, or leaving us an iTunes review if you like what we do. And more than anything, please share the podcast, because word of mouth is the only way we get new listeners. We want to thank you, Dachi, for our new intro music, and even though we have a new outro as well, I'm just gonna play a Space Jam remix this week. Like always, get
Drunk.
And
Watch.
No!
anime!
Damn it!
you just say anime, not watch.
What?
Okay, okay. After Hunter goes, you just say anime. All right.
As always, get
Drunk.
And
Anime.
see you guys next time.
yeah, so
See how
Kyle,
much funnier that is?
Dance, do your dance at the Space Jam. Alright.
All right, I promised you guys some context, so here it is. When we first started the podcast, I wanted it to be what our original tagline suggested: an anime podcast where some of the most unqualified people try to answer your anime questions. The decision for the show to be sort of a drunk anime advice podcast was a solution to our main concern, which was, how do we start an anime podcast where 3 of the 4 hosts have only seen a handful of anime? It was a good idea until we realized after 2 episodes that people weren't exactly flooding our inbox with questions. So I started coming up with my own questions that the guys could answer without being anime experts. Questions about having good taste, various tropes, and broad generalizations regarding the anime community, ultimately resulting in us unintentionally becoming a podcast about anime culture rather than anime itself. I was really happy with this outcome, but it wasn't fulfilling that desire I had to analytically explore a specific anime. It also wasn't exactly attracting thousands of listeners, but that has more to do with the unpopular nature of podcasting. So, as most of you know, I recently started making YouTube content. My 2 whole videos received a really positive reaction, and unlike the podcast, people began actually asking for more. So I obviously want to pursue that avenue. However, as I mentioned last episode, I don't have enough time to work on both the podcast and videos while having a full-time job. When I asked you guys for your input on the potential change, no one was really understanding why I was stressing out about the podcast and why it was so time consuming. Contrary to popular belief, I don't just sit down in front of a mic with a beer and come up with a topic on the spot. About 70% of everything I've said on the podcast has been scripted. I think the scripted portions of the podcast average to about 3,500 words. I toyed with the idea of doing an unscripted podcast, but that scares me so much. And honestly, an unscripted podcast feels selfish. It's basically conveying the belief that I think I'm so inherently interesting that any ramblings to come out of my mouth are deserving of your attention. Your time is valuable. You deserve coherent and thoughtful content, which is why I took the time to even write this out. After a lot of thought, I came to the conclusion that I don't need to create two pieces of active media. My videos can be active, meaning something you sit down and actually give your attention to, while the podcast can be enjoyed passively, something you listen to as you do chores, drive, play video games, etc. Up until now, I've been writing the podcast as active media. So you just heard the new passive version of the Weeabooze. The idea came to me when I was looking through our catalog of episodes, and I stumbled across the one where we talked about why anime is our favorite medium. While we may have answered that question, we only answered it one way. The reasons I love anime are endless. Sometimes I just want to acknowledge how beautiful lyrics in an opening are, or how much a scene made me laugh. We were starting to get into some borderline philosophical topics, whereas this new format of discussing anything we love about anime is so much more accessible. It's something you don't need to devote your undivided attention to. It allows for almost poetic outlooks on anime. I'm so excited to start thinking about the little things that make me happy instead of searching for these vast cultural subjects. I don't think this is something we could have done from the start. I think this idea works better after knowing us. Overall, I guess I would say the intent of the podcast is to encourage people to question why they like something. I really hope you all enjoy this new arc of the Weeabooze, and I'm looking forward to sharing more positive outlooks on anime with you. Thank you so much for spending your time with us, and I'll see you guys next time.